After an 11-year journey, Pandora Radio is now on the verge of an IPO. The internet radio company spent years categorizing music, negotiating with the big labels, then taking its service mobile. It plans to sell 14.7 million shares at a boosted price of $10 to $12 a share as early as this week. Pandora paved the way for dozens of smaller startups to try their luck in the fast-changing online music business. Now, Spotify, a music subscription service that's been a huge success in Europe, is one step closer to launching in the U.S. The music startup has reached a distribution deal with Universal, as well as EMI and Sony. It's also getting closer to an agreement with Warner Music. But the field is already crowded with big-time competitors. Apple just overhauled its music strategy, allowing users to wirelessly download and sync music on multiple devices. Google and Amazon now have streaming music services of their own. So is it anyone's game? Let's bring in Michael Robertson. He brought digital music to millions as CEO of MP3.com, a company he took public in 1999. At that time, MP3.com was the largest internet IPO of all time. Michael is currently CEO of a personal cloud music company, MP3 Tunes, which helps you store your personal music collection and makes it accessible from any device. He joins us today from San Diego. So, Mike, first of all, looking at this rapidly changing music landscape with Pandora on the verge of going public, how do you see Pandora stacking up to the competition?
Well, I think Pandora is going to have a successful IPO because they have wonderful consumer satisfaction. They're integrated into every device. The big question is, will they make money in the long run? And if you look at the math there, it doesn't look good.
How about in terms of innovations? There's been criticism that Pandora isn't social enough, that some of these smaller startups are doing things better than Pandora, which is set in kind of its old ways.
No, listen, I think Pandora's had a laser focus on their radio offering, and they haven't done a lot of things social. But if you look at the numbers about how many devices they're integrated with, how many billions of minutes users are listening, they're really succeeding. The big knock on Pandora is that, unlike in most businesses where the more you do, you get a volume discount, that's not the case with Pandora. Their biggest costs are royalties, and those royalties go up about 9% every year from now until 2015. They're already half of their total revenues in royalties. So if you keep adding 9% of that per year, you come up with a big number. And will Pandora ever be profitable? That's the question.
So how about Spotify, another service that's been getting a lot of buzz, poised to launch in the United States with a completely different model, a subscription-based model? What's your take on that?
Well, Spotify, as you mentioned, is a monthly paid model. But why they're having troubles in the U.S. is that part of their strategy is they want to give people a free service. So you can listen for free on your PC, and then if you want to listen on your smartphone, which is where half of Pandora's music listening comes from, then you have to pay. Well, Warner Music has decided they don't want any more free services. They think if you let people listen to music for free, even on their PC, then that hurts the ability to get them to pay a monthly fee. And that is the crux and why Spotify hasn't been able to sign Warner Music. But I'm sure at some point in the future, they'll figure out a way to get that done. That still doesn't mean that Spotify will make money because their royalty rates are also very high.
There are so many difficult dynamics to navigate in the online music business. I want to bring in our editor-at-large, Cory Johnson, who's out in the newsroom right now and wants to ask you a question, Mike. Cory?
Yeah, Michael, so they don't like free at Warner. So radio, how do they feel about that? I mean, aren't we battling a kind of old battle here?
They hate radio, and here's why. Music has two owners, the person who wrote the song and the person who plays the song. That's the record label, typically. Well, radio doesn't pay anything to the record label. They pay the songwriters about 3% of their total revenues, but the record labels, they never pay anything. So if you look at radio, a $17 billion a year industry, the record label hates it because they make no money from it. So what they did is they got the rules changed. So online, you look at a company like Pandora, they pay about 0.1 cent per song per user. So every time somebody clicks that play button and hears a song on Pandora, they've got to pay 0.1 cent. The radio the record labels love that model because it guarantees them money, but they hate the traditional radio model.
Well, but speaking of Pandora, I mean, Pandora's out of the box already when it comes to radio. It seems like the power has already gone to radio. Has the power already left the labels when it comes to distributing music digitally? When it comes particularly to Apple, which is kind of a dominant player in the business of selling music?
Well, Apple is clearly the market leader, and so that's why it was fascinating to see the record labels give a first-of-its-kind license to Apple for their matching technology, which is going to look and see what files you have on your computer and then instantly turn them on in your cloud library, so you don't have to physically upload every single song. That's a big deal for Apple, and it's puzzling why the record labels, who already fear Apple's dominance, would make Apple even stronger. But here's why. Apple would agree to the licenses even if they had to pay the record labels a lot of money, because Apple doesn't make money selling music. They make money selling devices. So they're able to sign these deals where they may not make money, but they know they'll sell more devices, so all the economics work in the long run.
So again, is that about power? Is that about who's the most? Is Apple the most powerful company in the music business?
Well, I don't. Apple is clearly the most powerful company in the music business, but one of the reasons they got the license is because the record labels were desperate to get somebody to actually sign a license. What we've seen since the beginning of the year is that Amazon has launched a service without paying a license. Google launched a music service without paying a license. My company, MP3 Tunes, launched a service without paying a license. They want to start getting people to license music. Apple was willing to play with their terms. So the record label's a little bit desperate to start moving people to a license model, and Apple's dominance, I think together that's what helped make that license possible.
All right, thanks so much, Cory. And Michael Robertson, CEO of MP3Tunes.com.